Welcome back to our series on the 5 business rules for building a sustainable social enterprise, a truly impactful social enterprise. I'm your host, Darrell Coleman, founder and CEO of DC Design. And this is episode 3 of 5. On this episode, what I want to talk to you about is how to use money for good. So there's a fallacy that exists in our society. It's something that finds its way creeping into our thought over and over again. And it's known as the ZeroSum Fallacy. The ZeroSum Fallacy essentially says that the amount of wealth in the world is a fixed number. There's a pie, and that pie is only so big. If a certain number of people have a certain amount of wealth, that means that the other percentage of people within society can only have what's left over. This fallacy has been disproven over and over again by different economic systems and theories, but ultimately it keeps us locked in a state of believing that the only way for wealth to increase, for those who don't have money to have more money, for those who don't have security to have more security, is to take that from the people who do have it. In a sense, there are aspects to this theory that make sense whenever we look at sort of time-bound elements, when we look at a snapshot in time and a snapshot in existence. And in a sense, there are some pieces of this thought, this approach, that make sense when we start to consider that the wealth that has been accumulated is in some way needed, often, in order to produce more wealth, but it often isn't thought about the way that I think it needs to be. And so I want to share with you a different framework, a different view for how wealth is generated and how money can be used for good that you can start to employ as a social entrepreneur. My hope is that by showing you a bit of this thinking, a bit of this thought process, something that I've come to embrace in the work that I do, it will free you to more easily and openly embrace the idea that you can build a business that does good in the world and that does good for you as well. So here's the thought that you ultimately need to understand here. In life, I believe that life is not about what we can take from the world. Life is about what we can invest back into the world. Life is about what we can invest in others, what we can invest in those who will never actually get to meet, but whom will benefit from what it is that we've created. In the long run, we can't take all the wealth and all the things from this world with us. And so the true measure of how lasting it's going to be is going to be how much of it stays here with the people who are here. And then after they leave, who else gets to use those resources going forward. When we invest money, there's an idea that's really important for us to think about that applies to how we can use money for good and wealth overall. So when you invest money, whether you invest it in a bank account or you invest it in stocks, the idea that you are investing under is that over time, the amount of money in your account, the total amount of money there, will accrue and accumulate more money, right? And that idea is a valuable one to think about because the same thing is true for how we use money for good, though it isn't by investing in stock. You see, wealth creation overall happens when we invest a resource into something and that thing is transformed into something more valuable. The same equation, which has worked in all of our own lives, works in the lives of other people. So we're stepping away from money for a second and we're saying, okay, in order for wealth to be accumulated, something of value needs to be invested into something else to transform that thing into a position where it can be used to produce greater value, right? Or is of greater value to the world in and of itself. So let's think about us as people. When we were young, when all of us were babies, and someone came along and said, I'm going to nurture you. I'm going to care for you. I am going to invest my time and energy into you. I'm going to teach you to walk. I'm going to teach you to talk. I'm going to make sure that you can read and that you can write. I'm going to make sure that you have the resources that you need to develop your body and your mind as well. And so throughout that time, you can think about what's happened to each of us to get to the point where we're at right now, where we're able to understand this video, or where I'm able to make this video, as having been invested in. Someone took a very valuable resource, their time, their energy, their knowledge, and they transmitted that to us. They shared that with us. They cultivated something in us that allowed us to grow into who we are right now. What's incredible, though, about what they have invested is that what they invested from, the source they invested from, is actually more valuable than money itself. Because remember, I said money is a tool, right? Money in and of itself doesn't have value. It's a value that's ascribed to something. But the source from which people were investing in us is more valuable than that money itself, because it is a renewable resource that can be used over and over again. It wasn't probably just transmitted to us. Perhaps you have siblings, or there are other people in your life that your parents or your guardians have invested in. It is something that can be spread to more and more people. And now, remarkably, we also have that same ability. So if we look around at humanity, we see a group of people who have been invested in throughout their lives, whether that's the investment of the development of their brains, the investment of the development of their bodies, the investment of their development of their sense of social security and love and compassion for one another. All of these things are the result of investment. All right, so what's the point? Well, in the first video, I said to you in this series about the 5 business rules for building an impactful social enterprise. I said money isn't evil. You need to see it as a tool. It is something that can be used for good or for evil, depending on how we choose to apply it. The second rule that I gave in this series was to create products that leave people stronger rather than dependent on you. And when those two things start to come together, they start to form the basis for an economic theory that I think has been really helpful for me to embrace, and hopefully is helpful for you as well, which is that we should accept that money is a powerful tool that should be used to leave all involved in a creation stronger than they were before. Everyone who's involved in some sort of endeavor, everyone who's involved in the creation of a new product or a new service, the offering of that product and service, should be left stronger than they were before. And in order for that to happen, it does require investment. Often that's monetary investment, but it doesn't necessarily, but it does expand in our mind what it means to build wealth and to use money positively. So as social entrepreneurs, when we think about these two rules put together, right, that money isn't evil and that everyone should be left stronger rather than dependent on you, we need to invest to create products and services that those in need can use, that are valuable to them. But we also need to value our employees and those who work for us. And that means investing in those individuals so that their life dreams, their life ambitions, the things that they are trying to do in life are also possible, that those are things that they can create, that they can achieve, right? There are people who have worked for me who have come in and who have decided to take a pay cut of some sort in order to do that. They've recognized that there are other jobs that they could have. They could go work at a huge tech company. They could go work, as iBankers. They could go do all sorts of things because they have these minds that will allow them to do that. They have the credentials that will allow them to do that. But they've come to work with me instead, and they've done that with the explicit knowledge that I can't necessarily pay them what McKinsey can pay them, or what Bain can pay them, or what some other huge firm can pay them. But what I can do is I can invest in who they are and who they want to become in a way that will allow them to become that person, become that entity, meaning that they then can invest in the world the way that they want to, right? And we can start to zoom in on different businesses and business itself across our country and across our world, and we can start to see that this paradigm of investing in employees and contractors and people who are involved in the creation of a good, the creation of a service, is often left out. It's often not a part of the primary conversation. So when it comes to business, most big businesses that we see around us employ people, which is great, and we give them credit for creating jobs. We call them job creators, right? And that's really helpful. But those same companies aren't setting those people up for long-term success in their own lives. And that's where this feeling of exploitation comes in. That's where someone who is barely surviving is dependent on the job that they have, the minimum wage job, the low income job that they have, but has nothing left on top of survival in order to get or to produce or to invest in becoming more of what they want to become. In addition, the job itself isn't investing something in them so that they're getting that benefit, right? So there always needs to be the baseline of survival plus something else that's going in. And that is the essential formula for you as a social entrepreneur, is to create things that move people off of survival, but hopefully begin to also invest in additional capacity, invest in the ability for someone to get further along the path toward where they want to get to, whether that's the person who you're serving, who comes to your immigrant-focused preschool, and you're able to invest in those kids, you're able to invest in those parents, or that's the worker that is working for you in order to further their own life and to carry out a great goal toward a noble cause, that they are able to invest in their own life to survive, but also to continue to get to where they want to get to as well. Think about any big business in the country and think about the conversation that's going on there. It's often one where there's a battle between minimum wage, there's a battle between unionization, there's a battle between all these different factors. And I don't have a deep and strong opinion on all those pieces necessarily, but what I do think is that as a business creator myself, a business owner and an employer myself, it is important to me to invest in everyone who is involved. And if I can do that, if I can make sure that each person on my team is able to receive what they need to survive in their own life, and then I can understand more of their own goals and help them reach those goals, both through mental investment, but also through additional financial investment where possible, then I can begin to build a system, right? I can begin to use my life in a way where the pie is growing all over the place, right? We're solving social impact issues, things people haven't been working on, or haven't been solving, I should say, haven't made the type of progress we need to make on for years and years and years. And we are also ensuring that everyone who is involved in that is able to grow themselves. And it is from that perspective that the pie grows. It's from that perspective that we create a positive sum game. All right, so that is what I have for you. That is how you use money for good. You invest in people to make sure that they are stronger than they were before, and you recognize that money itself isn't evil. It is the tool that you can use to invest, one of the tools that you can use to invest. All right, so that's what I have for you today. If you think this would be useful for someone, if there's someone you know who's been struggling with this sort of economic theory, this conundrum of, I don't know if I can start a social enterprise because I might be exploiting people, send this video to them. Send this along to them so that they can understand what their baseline commitment is to the people that they are seeking to work with and serve. We're trying to create a world where there is more and more value, and that no one has to live with less or do with less or be diminished in order for someone else to rise up. And I think that this theory might be helpful for them. So send this video along. Would love to hear your comments. Go ahead and leave those below if you agree, if you disagree as well. And I'll be back tomorrow with another episode to continue our series on the 5 business rules for building an impactful social enterprise. See you then.